Tiamat is another famous one that I couldn't go on without mentioning, the serpent goddess of the sea. Tiamat was written about in the Enuma Elish of Babylonian writings. She represented forces of chaos, and Marduk was their god. Marduk overcame Tiamat to bring order to the cosmos. The Mesopotamians also believed in what were called Galu. They were known as like beings of the underworld, and that's another reoccurring theme. These higher beings are associated with the sky, and the more negative beings are associated with the underworld. In Egyptian mythology, they had Apophis, and Apophis was the serpent deity. Apophis was the nemesis of the sun god Ra, who most people are relatively familiar with. But again, you see this serpent being in opposition to the higher, more supreme being, another underlying theme. They also had Amit, who had the head of a crocodile, the body of a lioness, and the legs of a hippo. Was said to be a hideous being, but the head of the crocodile. Again, we see that kind of reflected later on. David Icke would argue that that's evidence for reptilians throughout history, but I think it's more than that. This serpent energy, again, that we've talked about with the Kundalini, and the idea of this serpent representing in a lot of Native American culture, the serpent representing like earth wisdom and things like that. There's a lot of connections there, and the devil was cast down to earth, and the devil is known as the serpent. In the story of Adam and Eve was confused as the serpent. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that serpent in the Garden of Eden was the devil. That was an association that was made later on. The Agatha demon was known as a benevolent spirit of good fortune and wisdom. The Agatha demon likely evolved into later guardian angels, and also like the Romans had the lares. The lares were household protective spirits in Roman mythology, likely inspired from these Agatha demons. In ancient Greek mythology, they had Lamia, or Lamia, was also known as it was a female figure that was known as like a child-eating demon. And it was depicted as a beautiful woman, and she could prey on young men and children, actually. A lot of times in the drawing, she was shown with a human upper body and like a serpent lower body. So you see the prerequisite for the mermaid, kind of. Samael was said to be like the venom of God, and it wasn't necessarily a demon. Samael was the angel of death, more like, and we saw that a lot in previous cultures. Some of those angels or deities or connections to higher beings could also carry out sometimes necessary but wicked acts on mankind. There's a lot of deep, rich history and stories behind Samael. But he really represented, like I said, the darker aspects of divine justice. He was also kind of depicted as the serpent that caused humanity's downfall. He was known to plant the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, was the enemy of Israel and the archangel Michael. Can't move on without mentioning Satan and crazy, wild history, very fascinating stories. Originally in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, Satan was just the opposer or the adversary. It was more of a title. Satan was not this single negative entity that was later recognized in Christianity. Originally, the name just meant adversary, and it likely came from the word Saturn. Later on in the New Testament, he was the one that rebelled against God and was cast out of heaven. He was known as the evil of the world. They said that in these days of Christianity, he started to be recognized as all of the sin of humanity. He represented the energy or the spirit of that sin for all of humanity. What's really interesting is that Satan was cast out not only because he opposed God, it was more that he wanted to be like God. And there's specific scriptures where he stated he wanted to be like the Most High.